This this week's Torah portion is Parshas Re'eh, which means see. And I'd like to just look at the first two verses. Really, just at the first verse for now. If we have time, we'll look at a few verses after that. Excuse me. And really, maybe just at the first two words. So the first two words of the portion are Re'eh Anochi, see I, notein lefnechem hayom. I'm placing before you bracha ukala. That God says for Moshe, and Moshe gives the speech. Basically, I'm placing before you a blessing and a curse. So I want to share a few explanations just of this word Re'eh and Anochi. And the Baal HaTurim himself has 8 explanations just of the word Re'eh. 8 different explanations. Then I saw an explanation of Rav Moshe Feinstein and the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And if we have time after that, which we might not because we have to stop a little early, I'd like to look at a commentary from the Dudai Reuven. So, Re'eh Anochi, see I am placing, see I, notein lefnechem hayom, placing before you today, bracha ukala. And then the next words are, et ha-bracha, asher tishme'un, the blessing if you listen, ve'hakala, and the curse if you don't listen. So let's look at the 8 explanations of the Baal HaTurim to the word see, I. So he says, first, why does he say see, which is in the singular? Meaning to say that Re'eh is the second person singular. It's like the Joseph, as they say. Look. But the rest of the passage is in the plural, before you, which is in the plural. So see in the singular, I'm placing before you in the plural. Tishme'u, if you listen, which is in the plural. So we would expect the passage to begin Re'u in the plural rather than Re'eh. And also, what does it mean see? What are they supposed to see? I mean, like sometimes we have this expression, look here, but that's kind of a modern explanation, a modern phrase. What does it mean see? And last week's portion was Tishme'un, listen. We have a lot of hear, listen, but where else do we see see? So the Baal HaTurim says, the following: Re'eh Anochi, Amar b'lashon yachad u'pirusho, Re'eh Amar l'kol echad v'echad. His first explanation is, why does it say see? And Moshe was speaking individually to each and every person. Meaning to say Moshe spoke to every person. Sometimes you have an amazing teacher, and when that teacher is speaking, everybody in the room feels like that teacher is speaking to them individually. Nobody was a better teacher than Moshe. And Moshe had several million people in front of him, but he was speaking to each of them. Look here in the singular. There's a midrash that tells us, says the Atros Adar, that when Hashem uttered the 10 commandments, he modulated his voice to accommodate each person according to his ability to hear and assimilate Hashem's words. So each person, the Torah is created for each and every one of us. Each and every one of us is being told this personally. It's a personal Torah message to each of us. It's a very powerful idea. So that's the first explanation, that Moshe was speaking to each and every person. And some say, second explanation, somebody else keep track. I'm going to lose track. I mean, I could do it when it's 3 or 4, but once I start getting higher, it's hard for me to count that high. The second explanation says, Yoshua Amar, that Moshe was speaking now to Joshua, and he said, Re'ei Anochi, see I am placing. He said this to Joshua, and he tells them, V'ziru levarechat Yisrael k'sheyavru et Yarden. He tells them to bless the Jewish people when they cross over the Jordan. Meaning to say, how do we understand what this comment is meaning? That's what the Baal HaTurim says. So what it means is, Moshe said to Joshua, look, in the singular, I'm talking to you. See that I present before you. He says to Joshua, I want you to see that I'm placing before both you and the rest of the people a blessing. And so too, you, Joshua, shall present the blessing to the nation after they cross the Jordan. So the first explanation was he spoke to every single person. The second explanation is Moshe is telling Joshua, I want you to see that I'm placing these blessings before everyone. And when you cross over the Jordan, I wanted you to give everybody those blessings again. The blessings and the curse, give them those options that they should see it. That's explanation number two. At the end, I guess we'll take a poll and you'll tell me which one you like the best. Explanation number three is Yesh Mefarshim Lefi Shekolot Ubrachot Shebemishne Torah Kulam Nemru B'Lashon Yachid, that the blessings and the curses in the Mishnah Torah, all of them were said in the individual. Meaning to say, the blessings and the curses in the book of Deuteronomy are stated in the singular. The Talmud in Tractate Megillah, this is the explanation of what the Baal HaTurim says that the blessings and the curses of Leviticus are in the singular, are in the plural, while those of Deuteronomy are in the singular. So therefore, that when the curses are given and the blessings are cursed and given, and it appears twice in the Torah, it appears at the end of Leviticus and at the end of Deuteronomy, or towards the end of Deuteronomy. So the Baal HaTurim is telling us that the blessings, so he's reminding us that the blessings and curses in Leviticus are said in the plural, whereas the ones in Deuteronomy are said in the singular. And so therefore, because the blessings and the curses are addressed to each individual, therefore, Moshe used the singular form when he begins to speak of the blessings and curses. Okay, so he says, I'm placing it before all of you, but you should know that these blessings and curses are addressed to each individual. That's the third explanation. So again, let me just summarize, or we'll forget all of them. The first one is that he was speaking to each person individually. The second one, is that he was speaking to Joshua and telling him to repeat these blessings and curses when he crossed over the Jordan. The third explanation is that Moshe Rabbeinu was reminding us that the blessings and curses in Deuteronomy are different than in Leviticus. Leviticus are in the plural. In Deuteronomy, they're going to be in the singular. Fourth explanation. This one is very, very sweet. Moshe says, Re'ei Anochi, see I am placing before you, but we read it as Perush Mimeni Tiru V'chein Ta'asu. The explanation is, from me you shall see, and thus you shall do. Meaning to say, see I want you to see me. I want you to see me. And therefore, once you see me, I skipped one. Strike that from the record. I went to the fifth one before the fourth one. Let's go back one. The Re'ei Anochi means, where else do we have the word Anochi? Anochi also appears in the Ten Commandments. In the Ten Commandments, it's the first word. So Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to the Jewish people, see the Ten Commandments, Re'ei Aseres HaDibros, which started with Ani, and fulfill them, because all of the mitzvos are included in them. And that's what he says. All the 613 commandments are included in the 10 commandments of the Aseres HaDibros. It doesn't explain why he says it in the singular and then in the plural, but he is saying what the word Anochi means, meaning to say, I want each of you to look, and I'm placing before all of you today the blessings and the curses. But where do I want each of you to look? see the Anochi, see the 10 Commandments, which has all of the 613 commandments. So that's the fourth explanation. The fifth explanation of the Baal HaTurim is Re'ei Anochi, see me. I want you to observe me and emulate my example. Re'ei Anochi, perish be many tiru v'chein ta'asu. For me you shall see, and that's how you'll know what to do. That's what he's saying. Look at me. So let me just, before we go on, because I'm saying a lot, I don't want you to forget it. I don't want it to just be a big confusion, a big Mishka Bible. That, again, the first one was Moshe Rabbeinu speaking to each and every individual. The second one is that Moshe was speaking to Joshua and telling him to bless the Jewish people, to give them the blessings and curses when he crosses over. The third one is it's in the singular because in the book of Deuteronomy, the blessings and curses are in the singular as opposed to Leviticus where they're in the plural. Fourth one is I want you to see the Anochi, see the 10 Commandments. And the fifth one is to see me and emulate me. Now we're up to the sixth one. Re'ei Lashon Yachid. So now he addresses directly the question that I alluded to, that he says, see is in the singular, with Nechem is the Lashon Rabim. See is in the singular, and before you is in the plural. Rahainu Da'amrinan, Kate said, say there on Mishnah, and this teaches us how did Moshe Rabbeinu teach over the Torah. And this is how it happened. Moshe shone el Aaron. Moshe first taught the Torah to Aaron. And then after he would taught to Aaron Pirko, he taught to Aaron his portion. And then Aaron's sons entered in. And that's how it happened. Meaning to say, this is based upon a Gemara in Eruvin. But the Gemara in Eruvin says that it was first taught to one person, and then more until it was taught to everybody. So the teaching in the Torah happened from the individual to the communal. Look at the full passage in the Talmud is, how was the oral Torah taught? Moshe learned it from God. Then Aaron entered and Moshe taught it to him. After which Aaron moved to Moshe's left and Aaron's sons entered and Moshe taught them the portion. After which they moved aside and Elazar, they set it aside. And then the elders entered. And after the elders came in, then the whole nation. So therefore, the Torah started by being taught to Aaron, and then it was eventually taught to everyone. And that's what this verse is reflecting. By the way, we also see from here that if Moshe Rabbeinu could review and review and review and review again and again and again and again, how much more so do we need to review and review and review? Some people give me a hard time about the fact that not really a hard time, but they say you teach the daf yomi 3 times, actually 4 times a day. It's too much. Well, that's exactly how many times Moshe Rabbeinu did it. So obviously, we should try to emulate Moshe Rabbeinu in our own Torah study. So that was the fifth approach. What's the sixth approach? Davar acher le'el kesiv lachem. It says earlier. This goes back to the last verse of Parashat Va'etchanan. It says, that if you follow the ways of God, nobody will stand in front of you. Your fear and your might will be on everybody. Just like he spoke to you. So the last verse before Re'eh says the word lachem. And next to it is Re'eh anochi notein lifnechem hayom bracha. Look, I'm placing before you a blessing. Komar lachem ani omer shetivcharu bracha. Meaning to say, I say to you that you should choose a blessing. Meaning to say that Moshe Rabbeinu the whole thing is in the plural. And the reason, if your question is why do we go from the singular to plural? No, don't read it like that. Look at the last word of the previous verse, which is in the plural, and so therefore the whole passage is in the plural. Okay, the seventh explanation, davar acher. Seventh explanation, davar acher re'ei ki amapil goral im chavero mechaseh goralot v'chalakim. It means see means I want you to look at something. It refers to the person who draws lots. Generally speaking, when somebody draws lots with his friend, then the person holding the lots covers them so that you can't, know what to pick. Let's say you're choosing a card. Let's say you're playing a card game. You cover it up so you can't see. You don't know which one to choose. You don't know what you're getting. You don't know what your fate is. But in this case, Hashem tells us, you see everything in front of you. I'm not hiding anything. I want you to look at the lots and choose life. That's what God says. Listen, I want you to look at it. You choose. I'm not hiding anything. This path in life, it's very simple. You could choose this path, the path of God, or the other path. These are your choices. It's not a secret. It's not a secret. Look at the two portions and choose the portion of life. Meaning to say, if you want to get the blessing, you'll choose the portion of life. That you rely, that means to say, you rely upon me to guide my hand, placing on it the good lot and cause me to pick it. These are the 7 explanations of the Baal HaTurim in the word Re'eh, and they're all beautiful. And I want to just go on with what he says in a second. But before I do that, before I cite Moshe Feinstein on it, because it's such a beautiful supplement to the Baal HaTurim, I want to just say that we can't close this Baal HaTurim until we learn. He says, "See, I'm placing before you et habracha, the blessing." Now, the Baal HaTurim, this is an 8th teaching from the Baal HaTurim. We understand in our tradition, 7 is holy and 8th is above it, above the natural world. So the 8th is an even holier lesson. Hard to imagine. Because the 7 we've learned are so beautiful, but the 8th is an even holier. The Baal HaTurim notices that before it says blessing, there is a preposition, et, or prefix. I don't know exactly what the word is. But before the curses, there's no full word. It's just the letter, vehaklala, and the curses. It could have just said vehabracha, and the blessings. Instead, it adds a word, et. So why is there the word et? This is what he says. Bebracha amar et. When it comes to the blessing, there's a word before it called et. Lashon riboy. This is adding something on, an inclusionary term. Because there's not one thing that is not there. By the curses, he doesn't say that. What does this mean? What does this mean? I'll translate it again, and then we'll try to understand it. With regard to the blessings, he says the word et, which from a grammatical standpoint adds nothing. The word et adds nothing. It could mean the blessing, whether that word et is there or not there. And so, indeed, when we say the curses, that word et is not there. So we say, says the Baal HaTurim, that whenever the word et appears, it's coming to include something else. What's it including? It's including the fact that not an item has fallen away from the entirety of his good word. Meaning to say, the entire blessings I'm placing before you. And what does this mean? It means that even when we have a challenge in life and a struggle in life, we always have to remember that Hashem Yisbarach blessings are infinite. And even the challenges, the only reason why they're challenges at all is because he's given us so many blessings in the first place. Because we've had so many blessings, that's why we feel the challenges. What it's like is, let's say, there is a couple married happily for 50, 60, 70 years. It won't last forever. One of them will go to meet their creator, and the other one will be devastated. But even at that moment of tremendous loss, this lesson is to focus on the fact that the blessings were so great, that the blessings were there for 70 years. And the challenge and the loss is just at the end. And that the blessings, and even when Rambam says, even when a person is sick, so they have, let's say, a tremendous headache, but the rest of their body is working great. The rest of their life is working. So it's a reminder to focus on the awesomeness, the inclusion of the blessings. Now, obviously, this is easier to say when we're not feeling the pain or feeling the challenge. But that's exactly what the Baal HaTurim is saying. So let me just pause for a moment, see if anybody has any question before I go to Moshe Feinstein. Okay. So we saw all these explanations from the Baal HaTurim about the word Re'eh. And there's a lot of different explanations in the commentaries. I saw beautiful explanations from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, for example, but I want to just highlight one other explanation. That's from Rav Moshe Feinstein, because it's such a beautiful and simple teaching. The most beautiful teachings are often the simplest. And Rav Moshe Feinstein says, "See, I'm placing before you today the blessing and the curse." So Moshe Feinstein asks, why does it go from the singular, see, to the plural, before you? And then also, Moshe Rabbeinu says, the bracha and the curse. It says, et ha-bracha, asher tishmun, v'ha-kolah, im lo tishmun. So it's missing the word et before the curse. Why does it say et ha-bracha? Says Rav Moshe Feinstein, we all have to open up our hearts to hear this powerful, sweet message. The reason is because the blessing itself, listening to Hashem, doesn't only mean that you'll get a blessing, but listening to Hashem is itself a blessing. Walking in the paths of God is the blessing. Meaning the blessing isn't that you're going to win the lottery, or that your children will listen to you, or that your job will be successful. It's not only that. The blessing is walking in the path of Hashem is the blessing, because when we walk in the path of Hashem, if we are blessed to have that path in our lives, that produces the true bliss of spiritual calmness and emotional satisfaction, which doesn't exist in somebody who doesn't listen to Hashem, who doesn't walk in the path of Hashem. Says Rav Moshe Feinstein, one who has 100, one's 200. And if somebody, it doesn't have Hashem, they're never satisfied. You have this anxiety. If you have 100, you want 200. And that you're upset about the fact that you don't have as much as anybody else. Those people who don't understand that walking in the path of Hashem is itself a blessing, they will be groaning at the end of their life. Mishlei 5:11. That itself is the curse. For understanding comes one's final moments. The state of blessing and cursing stand alone, unrelated to punishment and reward. And that's what it means. And since this verse is saying that what's the highest blessing? The highest blessing is to walk in the path of Hashem. That is the blessing. And that's why it uses the word see. Why does it say see? It means see for yourself. See for yourself. Somebody walks in the path of Hashem. This life of simpleness is going to be inspirational. That's what it means. This is what it means. That the person should contemplate the lives of the righteous and the wicked and realize how one is a life of calmness and satisfaction, and the other is a life of unrequited seeking and spiritual frustration. Just look for yourself who's happier. Look for yourself who has found the better path in life, the one who walks in the path of God, or the one who never walks in the path of God. see who has the blessing and who doesn't. That's what Moshe Feinstein says. In this explanation, he goes on, but that's the point I want to make from Moshe Feinstein. It says, see, I am placing before you the blessing and the curse. In Hebrew, in English, it's the same, but in Hebrew, it's et bracha, to tell us that the blessing itself is the blessing. The path of walking in God's life, the reward is the fact that you're walking in that path. You're walking in your path. We don't know what the other rewards and punishments are. There's so many people who are righteous and they pray all day and they give a lot of charity and they study Torah, and yet they've experienced tremendous tragedies in life. But you know what? If they walk in the path of Hashem, they have the tools to deal with those, to deal with whatever Hashem gives us, or whatever challenge Hashem puts our way. But if they don't walk in the path of Hashem, each challenge will be magnified. So it's like if you have a strong foundation, you can deal with a chink in it. But if you don't, it just makes it so much worse. Okay, this is the first part that I wanted to discuss. And now I want to turn to the teaching of the Dudai Ruvain on Re'eh. Let me just stop the recording here.